Well, good evening and welcome to About the Valley. And tonight we're on at a different hour because we made an adjustment for our guest, John Kingston. John is running for the Senate as in the Republican primary, and hopefully in November for his Senate seat against Elizabeth Warren.
Yes, thank you for having me today, Harry, on
Yeah,
your birthday.
Yeah, my birthday.
70th
I
birthday.
wanted to really give the town a chance to get to know you.
Well, I really appreciate
I've
that.
gotten to know you over time now. We met at the convention.
Yes.
You had a great party up at the mansion.
It was a great party. It was a great party.
He had the best one. I'm going to say he had the best one.
You probably shouldn't judge your candidates entirely on whether they have the best party, but you know, it doesn't hurt, right?
No, it doesn't. And you did get your qualified votes.
Right.
So you are a candidate
That's
on
right.
the primary, and which is the third. I think it's the third Tuesday.
No, it's the first Tuesday of September. No, yeah, September 4th.
Right after Labor Day.
Day after Labor Day. That's
Wow.
right.
It's early this
Secretary
year.
of State Galvin had to move it forward a couple of weeks because of various Jewish holidays, and so that gives me 9 weeks to run against Senator Warren after I win the primary.
Yeah.
So
you know, it's a big challenge. It's a lot of work. People don't realize what an effort. You run for any office, but when you're running for you might say it's a national office in a sense.
yeah,
Statewide office anyway.
sure.
It is one big job.
I'll tell you, it is, and I've been doing this pretty much full time for the last 16 months. I started in February of last year when I said, you know what, I think this is the challenge I want to take on. I was heartbroken about the state of division in our country and the fact that we're people like Senator Warren are not getting the job done for hardworking Massachusetts citizens, and she's the embodiment of polarization and division in Washington. And so I decided February last year I really should take this on, and ever since then, I've been, even though I only filed my papers in July of last year, for 4 months prior to that it was round the clock, and ever since then it's been round the clock. It's really quite an adventure.
I want people in town to get to know you, and not just in town. We actually have viewers all over the country because we're on the internet as well. In fact, I have cousins in Poland that watch my show.
Well, how about that? Well, hello to the folks in Poland watching. Yeah. I'm going to guess that you're watching it on tomorrow, not tonight.
Right.
Not tonight at 1 a.m. there, but.
In fact, my son's going there next month or in July.
Oh, terrific.
Yeah.
Oh, terrific. What's he going to do there?
He's going to visit our cousins.
And so is he going to just vacation?
Yeah, on vacation.
Wonderful.
He travels every vacation. He loves traveling.
That's wonderful.
But so anyway, what I like to do is get people to know who you are, where you're from, and where are you from actually?
Well, I'm from a town that feels a whole lot like Northbridge with its ball fields. For those who have been to the station here, you know that there's ball fields right outside the cable station here. Harry was walking me around them before we got on the air here, and I'm from a real small rural town, a little more rural than Northbridge, in central Connecticut, and had a wonderful small town upbringing. My dad was a military veteran that left after serving in Korean conflict, and became a public school teacher. My mom stayed at home with us. It was a town where I played ball all the time. All I cared about was baseball and basketball and soccer or whatever the sport of the season was. That's all I thought about. And we didn't have a lot when I was growing up, but we had enough to get by.
Yeah, we didn't look for a lot of special things. We didn't need we didn't have computers.
Yeah, and it was basically just an anecdote from my upbringing. The gas and oil crisis of the early 70s,
yes.
which of course you remember.
Oh,
some of your viewers will be old enough to remember.
73, I was a salesman, so I know it was tough.
It was tough, and so in that period, just an illustration of the way it was back in the day. We changed over to a wood burning furnace for our entire house.
Oh,
that was the way we were going to economize.
A lot of people did that.
Exactly. It was a thing, and so we moved over to wood burning furnace. And what we did was, my dad said, okay, me and the boys, we're going to go out and we're going to cut our own wood, and that's the way we're going to make it work, right? So
Yep.
we went out in the woods on the weekends and we cut our own wood and stacked it up and chopped it down, and got it split and then brought it in, and well enough to know that that doesn't do a very efficient job of heating your house. And I can remember those 52-degree days, waking up at 52 degrees in the house because the fire had gone down really low, and you're waking up, you could see your breath. But that's what you did, right? It was obviously a simpler America, and certainly a less prosperous America. But I'm very grateful for what I got. And look, I never could have imagined, flat never could have imagined that I'd be here running for the United States Senate and have the opportunities that I've had. I'm just very grateful for what this country's given me.
What town in central Connecticut?
So it's a town called East Hampton. It's about
I'm familiar with it.
Are you?
Yeah.
Well, it's about
I travel all over New England.
a town of about 8,000 people, and it was 10 miles east of Middletown. Middletown, Connecticut was our big city.
Middletown is a home of my old Army buddy.
Oh,
Yeah. In fact, I'm going down to see him within the next few weeks.
oh, terrific. Now, you served in what years?
68 to 70.
Okay.
I was full-time. Then I come out and I went in the National Guard and I stayed in there for about a couple of tours.
All right. My dad, after he retired from active duty, he was in the Army Reserve for the next 20 some odd years. He retired as a lieutenant colonel. So we lived the Army Reserve lifestyle for a lot of years. Every other weekend, Dad's away, and Tuesday nights, and going away during summer for training.
I did the Guard, and I did regular Army. Then I got out. A year later, I was married, and first the kids come along. But I went in the Guard, made a little extra income. But I was there for the blizzard of '78.
Wow.
And we were gone for a month.
Wow. For a month?
Yeah.
You were activated for a month?
Oh, yeah.
That's unbelievable.
We were sent out to Weymouth.
And what did you do?
Well, we were patrolling. And some of the group, we were a mechanized infantry unit.
Wow.
But I pulled guard duty at the Harbor Light Mall. I was a sergeant of the guard at the Harbor Light Mall.
My goodness.
Protect the mall. I had brought some guys out and had to post them.
How interesting.
And we also had guys that toured the coast looking for bodies, looking for people that might have got washed out to sea from the blizzard.
So, tell me how that worked. When you were activated for 1 month. How did that work with your regular job at that point?
My employer wasn't happy.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
And
It's
I was
tough.
coming up for re-enlistment, and he's kind of convinced me, couldn't say not to.
Sure.
He said, look, it's in your best interest if you don't. And I started thinking too. The weekends, every time we had something, a family event, was a weekend that I had a drill. So I said, to heck, but
at some point it's tough.
actually now, they pay. I was on salary, so I got my full salary from work for the entire month. They didn't cut it at all, and I made a good paycheck from the Guard because I was an E6, and they gave me separate rations.
Right.
Because I was married and.
Right.
So.
No, it's your experience is just like my dad. My dad passed away a half dozen years ago, so he's not with us anymore. But same generation. He was 10-ish years older than you. But basically, that was the way Dad made ends meet for us, right? The public school teacher salary wasn't enough, and Mom was staying at home, and so, this was the best way he knew how.
Well, I was growing in my job and when I started making more money, they gave me more money. I was able to, that job helped me to get started when we first built our house.
Right.
And I built my house and I designed it to heat with wood.
Did you? Designed entirely to heat with wood?
That's
impressive.
It's a ranch, and I had it designed that I could put the wood stove at the bottom of the stairs in the basement, and the heat would come up and circulate through the house. And it was tons of woods behind me.
Right.
So.
What year was this?
78.
So it was just coming on the heels of everybody had that experience, and
I still heat my house that way, but now I have a pellet stove. But we still heat it that way.
What's interesting, again, younger viewers, won't believe that it's really hard to relate, right? That you, if you, of course, our experience was nothing like the Great Depression or like the challenges of World War II. on that scale, it's not even close. But compared to the prosperity we've experienced in the last
Oh,
15 or 20
it's
years,
been unbelievable.
yeah, compared to that, you had these things where you weren't really sure how you're going to put fuel in your car.
Right.
That was an issue. You're not sure how you're actually going to heat your house. Those were
Yeah.
issues that the middle America was actively concerned about.
Yeah, I mean, oil prices were shooting up and your pays weren't.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. People didn't know how to handle that, and it was something which was let's be clear. There is too many people left behind in our current society, and we know they face those types of issues, and we gotta worry about that. But this was the type of thing which basically every single person you knew was wrestling with this type of issue.
Oh, yes.
That's where ordinary Americans were thinking day over day. How am I going to get enough gas for my car, and how much heat my home?
Which is amazing because we've now gone back to being independent of the world now. We are self-sufficient on oil.
Amazing. It's and look, I think that's an opportunity, Harry, to talk about the idea that people get sometimes despairing about what happens in the world where things are now, and I believe in the industry and ingenuity of the American people, and if you let the American people do what they can do, we got 330 million amazing Americans, and who knows what the future holds? If you just let government get out of the way of our ingenuity and our innovation, we never would have guessed 20 years ago that would be a net exporter of energy at this point,
Right.
and that would be energy independent effectively. And who knows what the next 20 years are going to bring for us,
I mean,
right?
just think about this country, USA. My father grew up in a farmhouse with no electricity and no indoor plumbing.
Right. Was it here?
Yeah.
Wow.
In fact, across the street from where I live now.
How about that?
I'm on the old homestead.
How about that?
But the thing is, in the time that he was born in 1913, so we're talking through the 20th century and into the 21st century now.
Yeah.
Look at how we've come.
Yeah.
We've gone from, turn on the switch and you got lights. You don't worry about heating your house. And now you even got cable TV with tons of entertainment. I mean, it's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable.
And all this, and within a couple of generations, how we really expanded. And it's all been done primarily by industry within this country.
That's exactly right, and so that's why I try to tell people, people get so bogged down of the current problems, and I understand, they can seem really troubling, but I think what we have to do is be optimistic and visionary and know. I mean, I'll give you two examples, right? I mean, and I don't know how. Nobody knows what the future holds. You can't predict the future. We all know that.
Right.
But you take something like a hot button issue like climate change or alternative energy sources, stay with the two of those for instance. I know to a certainty that in 20 years from now we're going to have solutions to those problems. I'd bet 10 years from now. But 20 years from now, to a near certainty, we'll have solutions to those problems that we can't even conceive of right now. So we don't have to be too troubled about our reliance on carbon-based fuels. It is what it is for right now.
Right.
We gotta keep using them. But at some point in the future, we're gonna have better alternatives, and we're gonna figure it out.
Great example, right here in Massachusetts. If you go back to the middle 1800s, the main source of fuel and lighting was whale oil.
Amazing, right?
And we were worried because the whales were running out. We were running out of whales.
That's exactly right.
And what happened?
That's exactly
a
right.
guy named Drake discovered oil below the surface over in Pennsylvania, and we changed our whole style. It became, no one can remember ever using whale oil now.
That's exactly right. To the people who are living with whale oil, the idea that we're at this advanced state, and that we're thinking of, we're figuring out ways to take solar capacities and turbine capacities, et cetera, and to make it as clean as possible. Natural gas is remarkably clean these days. The ways that we do this now is fantastic,
But
and we're going to keep
You always
going.
have people out looking for a cheaper way and a better way.
That's exactly right.
It's always out there. And solar now has come a long way.
Yeah.
When they first came out with solar, it couldn't generate enough with the panels. Now these panels, I have solar panels on my house.
Magnificent. Magnificent.
Cloudy days,
Yep.
it makes electricity.
Absolutely. And you're just right. And it's gotten good enough that the only limiting factor is, these days is, it's not for an individual house so much, but for adding it to the grid broadly is battery capacity.
Yes.
So right now the big limiting factor for alternative, energy sources is battery sources.
But here again now, I'm on a planning board. We're looking at 2 solar sites in town. With that, they now put these battery units in, look like trailer trucks.
Yes,
That's how big these batteries are.
that's right.
And what's the purpose of that? To store the energy they're making during the day and keep feeding it into the grid at night.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. But what's going to happen 20 years from now is
The batteries will be in your house.
the batteries will be magnificent.
Yep.
And I don't know, again, I'm not smart enough to predict how, but I know they will be. And so these alternative energy sources will actually have storage capacity that goes along with these fantastic alternative energy sources, and it'll be all different.
You'll have a point where you won't have wires coming to your house from the street. You'll be independent.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that, but you're right. That's a
Yeah.
good call.
Because
That's a good call.
the battery technology is improving all the time. And they'll reach that point where they have batteries small enough and with enough capacity that can hold you through, a couple of weeks of winter weather or whatever.
It's great to talk about. When you're campaigning, you don't often get a chance to just sort of sit back and talk about, where we've been. You and I have reminisced a little bit about the old ball fields outside the American Legion building here, and remembering back for myself, and then to think, what are the lessons of where we've been and where we're going. So people get focused on the issues of the day, and that's understandable. And of course, that's what I've got to bring to this is that is a vision that I can serve the people of Massachusetts better than Senator Warren can. But just every once in a while, you say that all of that how we can serve people best now is informed by these great lessons of history and a vision for where our people will be later.
I'm a big history guy.
Yeah.
And because if you follow history, you won't repeat it. And you can also see how were they successful. Well, then that's where you do follow them.
Absolutely. There's a great line you've probably heard is history doesn't often repeat itself, but frequently it rhymes, right?
Yes.
And so basically, there's a certain sort of thematic, there's the principle. The principle was you let in innovative Americans, try to solve a problem.
Right.
Now that's the lesson of history there. It won't be exactly the same as the oil crisis in 73, 74. It won't be the same as moving off whale oil, back then. The specifics are different. But the general themes are very much the same, and that's what I would like to bring to this race. What I'd like to bring to Massachusetts voters is a vision that I'm in favor of common sense principles to solve our current problems with an eye to actually believing in the people. The people are the strongest and best people in the history of the planet. Americans are amazing, and my opponent, Elizabeth Warren, will want to drive decision making back to Washington in all of these areas.
Yes.
It's like, I'll give you an example, right? Socialized, healthcare, nationalized healthcare. Bernie Sanders would say, hey, let's take health issues and drive them to a Washington, apparatus. Look, we've got some serious problems with how Washington's functioning right now. In fact, I'm running against the dysfunction of Washington. I don't want more of what we're doing to be driven through Washington decision making. I want to let the people of this valley, be able to figure out how to run their lives. And that's where the greatness of America comes.
There's no two ways about it that they're both pro-socialism. And socialism is not going to get you advanced. The problem with socialism is everybody gets satisfied, so you don't have to make anything any better because, we're all set.
Well,
capitalism, on the other hand, gives an incentive for people to try to make something better so they can be better off.
That's right.
So they can make some money. What's wrong with making money if you make the world better?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, would we have personal computers if Steve Jobs didn't want to make money?
If to use the country of your origin, Poland, yes.
Yes.
So unfortunately, I went through a very challenging, time of socialism, and And no major advances in the entire world came out of regimes that were like that, because
No.
you can't organize a country with decisions being made for all the people out of a centralized spot and create innovation, initiative, industriousness, progress. You can't create it that way, because you don't let Harry Berkowitz go to the backyard in that world and figure it out.
If you go back to the Cold War,
Yeah,
the Soviet Union didn't make any advances that they didn't steal from us.
that's right. That's right. No, the only thing they were able to keep up with during that time was our military technology, and that was just trying
And they kept stealing it.
and their society was otherwise,
And why did Ronald Reagan beat them? Because he told them he was going to develop the Star Wars program, and they knew they couldn't do it.
That's right.
So
And the genius of Reagan, and I think the genius of our greatest leaders over time is to believe in the magnificence of the American people. Don't bet against the American people. Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders bets against the American people by saying solve something in Washington. I say, you know what, we're in Massachusetts. We know common sense regulation makes sense. We're not like the out in Montana where everybody's the big West. Everybody thinks like don't have the government touch us at all. We know that that's not practical in Massachusetts. We're gonna have government involved. But we say the less government, the better, so that people can actually enjoy their lives. Do we need to go off the air? Or
no,
take a break?
no. I'm just watching for the phone.
Okay, I want to make sure that wasn't running over. But
No. We're good. We go straight through.
The part about the American people, that what's great about us is that, and what's great about our country, I guess, most fundamentally, is that anything we can do to drive back to the real sources of what makes us happy, right? It's all the social science shows us that it's family, community, a dignified work, right? And if people choose to practice it, their faith. And if you're going to say, well, what makes you happy is some decision maker in Washington, you're getting it all wrong.
We've got a call, John.
Super.
I'm going to get this guy in before we lose him. Go ahead, you're on. Oh, wait a minute, the speaker didn't go on. There you go. Go ahead.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Hey, I'd like to thank you, Harry and John, for being on tonight, and I just would like to have a few comments on on the Senate candidacy. And what I was just wondering about is I don't know if John's aware of it, that we're going for potentially a new school here in Northbridge, and of course all politics are local.
Yeah.
I know you can't make any promises, but if you should be elected, would you have any problems with our town leadership coming in and speaking with either you or your staff director to possibly seek some additional federal funds, if it's possible, to help with the school, if that's something that you would agree on or look at? And I was just wondering what you think about that, John.
Well, the answer is of course. And you're right. It is local, and if you shouldn't be in the game I'm getting into if you don't actually care about people and care about their actual needs and the situation on the ground in Northbridge. If you don't care about that, then what the heck are you doing running for Senate? And the sad reality is, my opponent, Senator Warren, has got caught up in the ideology of these things, and their ability to serve the people either in the Senate or in constituent services has been very low. So I'm going to make our constituent services the equal or superior to anybody in the entire country, because I think that Massachusetts deserves that.
Yes, thank you, John, for that. And the other thing I was wondering, John, I know Harry can relate to, is in the late 50s and early 60s, you had a transportation system where you had trains, buses, and automobiles. Today I had the misfortune, I had to go to Lexington, and at 2 o'clock I got on 128, and it was a traffic jam. It was a traffic jam from Lexington all the way on the Mass Pike, all the way here. And, the mass transit system really hasn't been developed, I believe, since Eisenhower, Harry, with the interstate system.
No, you're right.
And I was just wondering what your thoughts on, John, is on trying to make mass transportation and maybe are not engineered to handle the volume of traffic. And these are things that a lot of the common people feel that when a politician goes to Washington, they forget about the average person in their district, and they're looked at more as a tax donkey than anything else. And I was just wondering if you have any thoughts on what you would do for the mass transit system here in Massachusetts if you should be elected, John.
Well, look, you talk about the practical issues that face people every day, and you're just right that everybody feels that sort of problem with our infrastructure in transportation challenges, right? Massachusetts is, Eastern Massachusetts, the part of the state, you and I live in. And I'm sorry, I missed your name.
Barry, it's Barry, John.
Barry. I mean, the part of the state we all live in. I mean, it's just a magnificent part of the world to live in. It's fantastic. But one of the challenges we all know is what you experience today. Driving back and forth to Lexington can take many, a long time. That's extraordinarily exasperating, and it's a huge inefficiency for us all. So we need improved infrastructure, and that is something which has been plaguing us for decades now. And I think that one of the reasons I'm running, Barry, is the idea that Washington, with an Elizabeth Warren type of divisive figure, is unable to actually figure out these. It's not a partisan issue whether you get through traffic quickly. The Democrats and Republicans can agree that you want to get through traffic most efficient way possible. But right now, Washington is so broken, which is what I'm running against, and what running on concepts of reform is Washington so broken you don't get to work on these things that matter to everybody, and everybody's on the same side of getting through traffic more quickly. And so, yes, we have to invest in infrastructure. We have to think more imaginatively about upgrading infrastructure in overburdened parts of the country like Eastern Massachusetts. No question about it. Right with you on that.
Right, because John, a lot of people feel that America is too busy taking care of the world than its own people. And, we can build new roads and everywhere all over the world, and we rebuilt Europe after World War II. We rebuilt Japan after World War II. And it's like our infrastructure is falling apart, where it's almost like a third world thing. But I'm glad that you're for the infrastructure. And lastly, I'll touch on is Social Security. For example, the Social Security death benefit has not been increased since Social Security was created. I think it's still $225. It's enough to put fuel in the hearse. So, there's a lot of things that the average person feels that they have been forgotten. And I think one of the few things President Carter said when he was president is that there is a general malaise across the land. And I think it's only going to be worse because people are checking out, and they feel that when politicians get down to Washington, they forget about that average person. They forget about that average middle American that's carrying the freight, the tax freight. We now have corporate America paying 30%. I think in the 50s and early 60s, Harry's, it was 70%. So, I just hope that, like I said, that if you get in, that you don't forget the person that's carrying the freight, the person that's been abandoned, and the person that's struggling every day. And I look forward to watching your campaign, and I want to thank you both for being on the show tonight.
Well, I just have to jump in on that if I could for a moment. I thank you for those reminders. It's I hope I'll never need to be reminded. But on the other hand, all good principles in life you need to be reminded of time and time again. If I ever forget that principle, then shame on me and vote me out. By the way, I just note that I'm as a reform-minded Republican here, against the Washington dysfunction. I'm in favor of a constitutional amendment on term limits. I think it's time to get Washington politicians turned out and head back home. And there's absolutely no way I would serve more than 2 terms. And the idea is that you got to stay in touch with what's happening back home. You have to be service-minded. And we know that something's happened in terms of our representation of the great citizens of Massachusetts with Elizabeth Warren and across the country. People are losing touch, with what's happening at home. And you go to Washington, you get into that whole sort of beltway, that President Trump calls the swamp. There's something wrong. and we know we have to change that. And thank you for your reminders there. It's good.
Right,
good
right.
words.
And just lastly, just like you're saying, it's true. Harry remembers Congressman Philbin from Clinton, and
Yes.
what he was known for was taking care of his district in this state. And I think, like I said, it sounds like you're going to reinforce that. And I look forward to your candidacy. And thank you, Harry, and thank the excellent staff at NCTV, and thank you, John, for being on.
It's a pleasure speaking with you. Thanks so much for the time.
Thank you,
Thank
Barry. Yeah, the thing is, you know, you've got politicians go to Washington and they're only thinking about their next seat.
Yeah.
Or getting reelected. That's the big factor. You know,
The
my only thing I'm worried about is that I'm going to have an election in 6 years if I'm a senator and 2 years if I'm a rep.
Their eyes are not on the prize. The prize is serving the people.
Right.
And I'll tell you, I've had I've been fortunate enough. You know, as I said, I came from a small town, and you know, here I am, you know, running for United States Senate, and you know, what a great country to provide me that opportunity to, you know, to be able to live the American dream like this. Amazing. Never imagined it. You know, but and along the way, I've been more successful than I ever dreamed of being, and I'm so grateful to God for that, and grateful to this country for that, and it's given me the opportunity to serve in a number of different ways over time, and I won't go into all the ways, but you know, just all sorts of reaching across the lines, you know, the partisan divides, working with Democrats, you know, white, black, Latino, Asian, you know, liberal, conservative. You know, I come from it, you know, as a small town, you know, white conservative guy, but you know what I believe is we're in this together as Americans, and we can do much better when we work together. So I've done that, you know, over all through my years, and so one of the things I've done, you know, over time is to work on national races, presidential races, you know, governor's races, Senate races, and I know a lot of people in Washington that are senators and you know, Speaker of the House and that sort of thing, and I have admiration for them. You know, I've worked with, you know, Speaker Ryan a lot, and you know, Mitch McConnell a lot, and others, but there's something I've noticed is that they lose the courage of their convictions because they're afraid of losing a couple of polling points back home,
Right.
and they're worried about being turned out instead of just doing their job and letting the chips fall where they may.
Well, that's something I wanted to talk about. You're not really coming from politics.
No,
So you're kind of like the current president with Donald Trump.
I'm an outsider.
An outsider.
And I'm an outsider, and I'm looking to change this. I'm looking to shake up the system.
Yeah.
That's what the game is for me. And you know, it's a combination of businessman, outsider, reformist. All of that packaged together with the fact that I've always worked across the different lines. You know, I've worked across every single major political fault line in this country, working with people of different perspectives. Because, you know, I'll give you an example. You know, I went to a wonderful Memorial Day event in Boston on this last Monday. It was the Memorial Garden. They had 37,000 flags.
Yes.
And so we were part of the group, volunteer group, that were taking the flags down at the end. And we showed up, and it was just magnificent. It was the greatness of this country, because it was 5-year-olds to 85-year-olds.
Yep.
It was black and white and Latino and Asian and immigrant, and it was magnificent. Because you know what, I mean, like it was one of those things where you're working as volunteers. You know, so you're right next to each other. You're handing flags back and forth. You're here. I'll take your broken flags for you and bring them over there and to put them in the broken flag bin because you had to get rid of the broken flags. And so, you know, people you'd never met before, but people of all colors, all ethnic groups, all upbringings from all around the world who have come to America. And what's magnificent about it, right, is when it comes to dying for America, it's no respecter of color. It's no respecter of Democrat or Republican. It's the fact that we are memorializing our American dead.
Yes.
And so you know, you have moments like that where you realize that that's who we are as Americans. We're better when we work together. Better when we figure it out together. We're better when we, you know, bring solutions together, because we're ultimately all on the same side.
Yeah. I mean, we got to get away from the partisan thing.
Absolutely.
That
Absolutely.
you know, I think there's this example what took place in the Congress this week where a law was signed in and now allowing people who are ill with incurable disease to be able to go out and get experimental drugs even before they're approved by the FDA, or do experimental medical procedures that haven't been approved yet. But they're terminally ill. So where does it matter? Well, they couldn't do it before because it was against the law. Well,
The heavy-handed regulation.
it ended up a large number of Democrats voted against that law. They said, well, they didn't want to give Trump a win. Well, that's not the way you should be looking at it.
That's right.
What's better for the American people?
That's right.
If they said, look, it doesn't make sense, and here's why, I could understand that. But that's not what they said.
That's exactly right. You know, I use this line all the time on the campaign trail. There's a great, we spent a lot of time in the New Bedford area. In fact, Frederick Douglass, 19th century freed slave, abolitionist, and a Republican. So Frederick Douglass had a great line, which is, I'll unite with anyone to do right and with no one to do wrong, right? It doesn't matter. It does not matter. I mean, it doesn't matter how bad a person is in other areas of their life. If they're doing the right thing right now, get on side with them, right?
Yeah.
Do the right thing with that person right now, and everybody benefits, right? And that's what we're losing right now in Washington. Nobody's doing that.
Douglass was a Republican as well.
Yeah, I mentioned that. Yes, I'm a huge fan of Douglass.
Yep.
Huge fan of Douglass.
Yep.
So I use his example a lot.
But, I mean, well, I want to get into, what town do you live in now?
Live in Winchester. It's
Yeah, I'm familiar with Winchester.
Yeah,
right outside of Boston.
right by Lexington.
You're on 128.
Exactly, and it's right next to Lexington.
You don't have to tell Barry about the traffic. You know what it's like.
That's right. I actually have an office in Lexington, so I didn't mention that a moment ago. But and our campaign headquarters is in Woburn. So we're
So you're up and down 128.
Yes, right, all the time. The time, and so I obviously I have the same experience Barry was talking about. So Winchester's been a wonderful town to us. I've raised 4 children. I got 4 children aged 15 to 25. All of them have been home this week, which is great. My one daughter is living in Austin, Texas, and she came back this week to be with us. And I got 2 children that are on the campaign, a 19-year-old and a 22-year-old. So that's fantastic. Winchester's been wonderful to me and my wonderful wife. Jean.
I met your wife. Really, really
Thank
nice
you.
person. And
Thank you very much.
very supportive. And you couldn't do the campaign without a supportive wife.
Absolutely.
It's totally impossible.
Oh, absolutely.
But the commitment is so great.
That's exactly right. I think I mentioned it started February of last year, right? And it was I'll tell a funny story. I hope your female viewers don't think less of me for the following. But I kind of had sort of thought about the idea a little bit, and then it was Valentine's Day dinner with my wife and I out at a romantic dinner at a wonderful restaurant, and I said, dear, what do you think about? And I'm thinking about whether I should ask or not. High risk, high reward, high stakes question. Maybe this Valentine's Day dinner is going to go very wrong, but I asked her, what do you think, about whether I run for this seat? Because I feel like it's our opportunity to serve, our time to serve. And it was a moment of great drama for me personally. I was like, oh no, which way is this going to go? And to my relief, she said, absolutely, John, without skipping a beat, she said, absolutely, John, we've been given so much. We've been provided so much opportunity. We may be able to add something in this American moment of division, and let's do this. I was like, whoa, I am so shocked. But back to your point, without her belief, vision, absolutely. And one of the things I didn't know, Harry, was the following, that I knew she's a wonderful wife. I know she really loves people, and I know people really love her. What I didn't know was how good she'd be out there speaking on my behalf and the like. She has done that tons.
Oh, yes.
And she is magnificent.
Yes. She did a great job at the convention.
Yeah, thank you.
With meeting and greeting people. I mean,
Thank you very much.
And you can
Very
see,
proud of her.
you can see she does back you. She wasn't doing it in a reluctant manner.
Yeah.
She's 100% behind you on this.
Well, one of the things that, and it's something which I've talked to people about. Like, look, if sometimes you say, well, and your viewers would probably appreciate that, they want to hear a guy that's going to run for Senate and hopefully serve them as senator that has their feet on the ground, and hopefully they'll appreciate that sometimes you question your own sanity when you're out here doing this all the time, and I do. But why am I doing this? Why am I doing it? Of course, it's because I love the American people and I love the people in Massachusetts and I want to serve. But one of the key leading indicators of I feel like we're doing the right thing at every turn is it's actually brought our family closer together, which I did not expect. Right?
Yeah.
So I got as I said, I got two kids working on the campaign, 19 and 22-year-old. They've grown tremendously. My wife has leaned in ways that I just couldn't even possibly imagine, and we've all had to grow in a lot of ways, but it's brought us closer together. It's a family project. Everybody pulls together and works together. It's wonderful.
It's a big commitment. You're here tonight. You live in Winchester.
Yep.
You've got an hour and a half, 2 hour ride home.
Yep. And that's pretty much every day. That's the
getting
way
out
it
of here
works.
at 9 o'clock, you'll be home around 11.
That's exactly right. That's the way it
and
works.
then I imagine tomorrow morning you're up at 5.
You got something in the morning. That's exactly right. It's exactly
See?
right. No, it's and that's why it has to come from a spot of passion, conviction, desire to serve the people,
Yep.
and and say, hey, you love your family, so is it working for my family too? And so far, thanks be to God and all of that. It's been working for our family.
Yeah, you're going to spend the year you don't have any family nights. You don't have any.
That's right. That's right.
No vacations.
That's exactly right.
It's a full-time job, and it's 7 days a week.
Yep. You have to keep your eyes on the prize. You have to know that what you're doing it for is to change a broken Washington, to serve the people of this great state. And if you don't love the people, as I said earlier, up and down the spectrum, if you don't actually feel passionate about taking care of people that are on the far left, even though you don't agree with them ideologically, up and down the spectrum of experience and ideas and perspectives, you got to serve them all. If you don't have that in mind, you shouldn't be in this game. But that's what I keep my eyes on and say, look, let's get at it, because we can make this country a better country.
A lot of people say, well, what can you do as a senator? You're one of 100. But it's not just, being a freshman senator, you're not going to be able to introduce a lot of new bills. I mean, it takes time. But you can inspire the people back home.
I think that this is a unique American moment where the partisanship is so, dramatic.
Yep.
And for the record of partisanship of Elizabeth Warren is off the charts. Just lining up, always against, making fun of her fellow Democrats when they do compromise. She'll go to the mat to embarrass them and humiliate them. And so, in this American moment,
it's getting nothing at all accomplished.
right? This American moment of partisanship, I think there's an opportunity I have to go to Washington, to go there as a reform-minded Massachusetts guy who wants to get it done for people on both sides of the aisle, and work with both sides of the aisle, and actually be a bridge to getting people to work together.
Look at the message Massachusetts could send by sending a Republican senator in place of her. You're saying, look at guys, we're all done with this partisanship. You've got to start getting along, and if you're not going to get along, we're going to make you get along.
That is exactly the reason why I'm running, is the idea that, I often say this, I wouldn't run in North Dakota against sitting Senator Heidi Heitkamp. She's a Democrat there. If I were in North Dakota,
Yep.
I wouldn't just want to be a senator. It's not just for the sake of being a senator. It's here in Massachusetts, I get to run against the person that embodies the division of Washington more than any other person on the ballot in the entire country. And when I beat Senator Warren this year, when the voters of Massachusetts say enough of that partisanship, enough of that angry obstructionism, we're going to vote in favor of somebody who works with people on both sides of the aisle to get things done, we're going to send a message to the entire country that it's time for a new way of doing business in Washington. And I think that the voters of Massachusetts are going to relish that opportunity to take advantage of that.
Now, do you feel that you have a little bit of a problem because you're running against a woman?
You know,
Some people say it makes it more difficult because you got to be careful what you say. You can't, if you're in a debate and you walk over to her side, oh, you're in her territory. But if she walks over to your side, nobody says that.
Look, I think the following is true. People want the person that can best serve them.
Yep.
You know, whether that's a man or a woman,
Right.
they want who's best positioned to serve them. I think that the people of Massachusetts and the people of the country are tired of the identity politics and saying,
About time.
I'm going to vote just because somebody's in that category.
Right.
Now, I mean, for heaven's sake, I've run into some remarkable women senators in my time. Gosh, I wouldn't want to compete with them. I mean, we had one in the bordering state, Kelly Ayotte, was a wonderful senator.
Oh, yes.
It just, she was terrific. I don't know if I would have competed very well against her because she was so good at serving the people. But Senator Warren is not that person. She doesn't care about serving the people. And so I think
haven't heard anything from her to help the people in Massachusetts in any way, shape, or form.
And that's the cornerstone of my campaign, right? I'm going to go to Washington to serve the people of Massachusetts, to change the dynamic in Washington, to not be the partisan, ideologue that, extremist that Elizabeth Warren is. And I think that ultimately people aren't going to say, yeah, but he's a guy. I mean, sure, some people do that, but only the far left tends to vote on identity politics. And
Yes.
and I think that the most people in Massachusetts will say, hey, Charlie Baker was better than Martha Coakley. Scott Brown was better than Martha Coakley.
Yep.
John Kingston's better than Elizabeth Warren. I mean, it's not about gender. It just happens to be about
And it shouldn't be.
Who's the better candidate.
Right. Listen to both sides and then make a decision based on who you think the better candidate is.
Yeah,
That's the way it should be done.
That's exactly right. That's the way. And I think one of the points that I will be broadly making to the people of Massachusetts is, when those attacks invariably come, you're. I don't like to think of myself as an old white guy, but I'm getting older. I'm 52 now, but say, oh, you're that category, and I'm just going to say, look at my life, look at my track record.
Yep.
I've invested my entire life deeply in the African American community, working across these divides. I married into a Chinese American immigrant family. You can't just put me in an identity politics box. It's not what people want, and you can't do that. And if you want to keep doing that, if you, the other side, the Senator Warren types, if you want to keep on doing the identity politics thing, you're going to get out of Washington just what you're getting right now. And I think people are tired of it. They want people that are genuinely America first, for each other. Doesn't matter what color or creed you are. It matters. Do you care about people?
Well, I think they make a mistake on that. They try to do that with Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And you look at him, he relates to the average person.
Yeah.
And they relate to him.
That's right.
Even though he's a billionaire.
Yeah.
Because he wasn't born a billionaire, he made his money. You have a successful business, but you weren't handed that business.
No. As I said, I came from next to nothing, a small town, and look, I've been very grateful, but I was provided opportunities. I took advantage of them. I had got loans to go off to fancy Ivy League schools, but they were loans. I had to pay them back, right? And I did well there, and ended up with a very successful company, here in Massachusetts to help build that for its now wonderful worldwide presence called AMG and the money management industry. And I was very grateful for that opportunity. I worked with wonderful people there, and I was way more successful than I ever dreamed I'd be. And now this is America, when you get the opportunity to give back and serve on the basis of what opportunities you've been given. you better take advantage of that. You better try hard to do the best you can for the country you love.
But coming from your beginnings, you know you can relate to the people because you lived it.
That's exactly right. That's exactly one of the points that I make.
And you didn't get in those Ivy League schools because you say you were, you have Native American blood or anything like that. You got in there because
I don't
you
think I'd
worked
be able to
hard.
get away with that.
You had to get the grade point average to get in there.
Yeah. No, and I you're right. One of the things I'm going to make, as consistently as part of my campaign against Senator Warren is the idea that I really have been in some slice of America on all different sides. I come from rural America, principally white, conservative, family, very faith-based. I've been, at the places of bastions of liberalism, the Harvards and the, made movies, and so I've gone through the Harvard and Hollywood world, so I know the left side of the aisle, and I've approached these things working, hand in hand in partnership with people on the other side. As I said earlier, I pledged a black fraternity when I was at Penn. I worked, deeply with the African American community. As I said, I've got 4 children of color as being half Chinese American.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen every side of all of these issues. I've been in different places. It doesn't mean that I've got greater wisdom as a consequence. It means that I just have shown that I care, have shown I've had that as experience. Growing up with a family of Trump voters, ending up at Harvard and teaching with liberal professors and liberal judges, working with liberal judges. I've been everywhere, up and down the spectrum, work with everybody.
When you see people, you see them as people, not as a particular ethnic group
Exactly.
or race or anything like that. You just see them as, hey, we're all the same. We're all in the same boat together, for crying out loud.
And that is what makes this country great.
Yeah.
It's fun to recognize the ways that we're different. That's fun,
Yeah.
but don't make it an axe to grind with each other,
Right.
To say, look, I've got I've got wonderful support in the Vietnamese community, and go to the Vietnamese events, and yes, the robust, complemented, the American experience of the Vietnamese people that came on boats. How wonderful.
They're the great example of a group of people that came here with nothing, coming from a war zone,
Amazing.
hopefully saving their lives, just staying alive, and then turned very successful.
Absolutely.
Extremely successful community.
Absolutely.
But you know what they all do? Education. Education is a big factor. I tell people that's how you succeed. You gotta get yourself an education.
Well, the great thing about the old line about there's only so many ways to make apple pie, right? It's apples and cinnamon and sugar and a good crust, and then you got an apple pie. So there's just some basics, right? You work hard.
Yep.
You wake up every morning, you do the right thing.
Yep.
You get educated. As best possible. You pour into your community, you pour into your family, and good things happen. And as you say, the Vietnamese community is a great example of that.
Yep.
Now, they add something unique and wonderful to the tapestry of this great country. But, if we start looking at it like, oh, yeah, the Vietnamese experience is entirely different, then no. It's just we're all together on the most fundamental level, and that's what I want to bring to
Yep.
Washington. We all care about each other. We work with each other.
I want to let you sum up for the audience why they should vote for you and why you make a great senator.
Well, first of all, I just want to say I have had a great time here. Thank you to your viewers who have joined us, and anybody who's going to watch from Poland tomorrow. A big shout out to you out there as well, and anybody else who's watching in
Cousin
cable.
Jan.
Cousin Jan?
Yeah.
All right, Cousin Jan, special shout out to you. Look, I'm just grateful to be here in Northbridge tonight, and grateful to be able to share this time with Harry and with the viewers at home, and grateful to live in a country that we have the freedom to talk about a wonderful and free, not without its challenges past. The ones that you and I reflected on from the 70s, and when you were serving in 68 to 70, and all of that. To dream of a better American future, to think about the possibility set of this great country, how wonderful the prospects are, but only when we work together as Americans, people, citizens of Massachusetts. I'm going to go to Washington once I beat Senator Warren in November, and I'm going to work to bring people together across partisan divides, stand against angry partisanship. I can be friends and work with people on the left and the Democratic Party. I can work with people on the right, deliver results for the people of Massachusetts. I've been given an American life that's remarkable. And I want to take that wonderful American life that I've had, that American dream I've had the opportunity to experience, and to give as many people as possible the opportunity to experience just the wonderful life I've had as well. And I look forward to the chance, if the voters of Massachusetts give me the opportunity to serve in Washington, serve Massachusetts and Washington, I will take that, and I will do everything in my power to serve you honorably and bring better results back home.
Keep in mind, Northbridge, you took time to come down here to our little community.
I love this. I had a great tour here with some of your local politicians a few months ago. It's a wonderful region.
Yeah.
I got a big kick out of the old mills and
We're in
great
the heart of the Blackstone Valley, a new historic national park.
I didn't know about the national park bit.
Yeah,
Really?
we're a national historic park.
Really?
It's the birthplace of the American Industrial Revolution.
I heard that when I was here, and that was
The
fascinating.
Samuel
to me.
Slater Mill in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, was the first textile mill in the United States, and he took the information from Great Britain and brought it over here and built that mill. And at the time, the British weren't letting that information out. He took it out in his head, was able to build that mill, and then it just sprung mills up all along the valley. And in this particular town, we had the largest
Is
manufacturer.
Pawtucket also in the? I mean, I'm not very good
It's
at
in the
geography.
Blackstone Valley.
It's also in the valley.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's on the
got it.
Blackstone River.
Okay.
We had the largest manufacturer of textile machinery in the world in the Whiten Machine Works, which is now gone. But
Right. So I visited some of those old hubs of the industrial era.
Yeah.
Fascinating, absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
I mean, it's and again, not to overplay the point and say it too many times, but another great example of America at its best in that era,
Yes.
right? And the Blackstone Valley is remaking itself again wonderfully.
well,
you know.
it turned us from a horticultural community
Right.
to an industrial community.
Right. That was what happened before, and now I've seen those mills and what the towns are doing, and now I see the new innovation,
Yes.
with new industry.
Those mills are the birthplaces of these small industries that have turned into big industries later on.
And Blackstone Valley is I visited the Chamber of Commerce. I mean, magnificent. The things that are happening here, the intelligence. So this region is a great example of what we're trying
Yes.
to do every place. As long as, as Barry said, as long as we can solve those infrastructure issues and get everybody an easier way to get around.
Right. Well, thank you very much for coming, John.
Harry, thank you very much. And
Hope
for
to get you back again.
and for I would love to. And for the viewers out there, drop Harry a note on his 70th birthday that he spent with me here. Give him a big birthday shout out and say thank you for serving the community the way you are.
Well, thank you. And we'll see you next Wednesday. I'm off because we're off for the summer, but we'll be here next week. And my guest is Peter Lee, who is going to be here talking about hearing. See you next week.
Thanks very much.